Today I'm going to give you the full breakdown of vaginal pains during the intercourse. All 5 different types of pain inside the vagina during sex, their causes, why they happen, how to avoid them, and the solutions. So this video is for women to understand, the cause of your pain, what you want to do about it, but also for men, if your partner is suffering from pains during sex, for you to understand how you can help. So for a bit of background, I have worked with women for 20 years as a sex coach and a sex therapist, working on all sorts of sexual difficulties and sexual problems that women have as part of my other work in coaching couples and men and just generally developing sex lives. And what I have seen through this work is that there is no such thing as a generalized pain during sex. There are 5 distinct patterns of vaginal pain during intercourse. They all have different causes, different solutions. It's really important to understand which kind of pain you're having. Unfortunately, women normally get told that you just need to use a lot of lubrication. That helps only with one kind of vaginal pain. The other 4 are not influenced by that at all, and there are other causes and solutions to them. So let's look at all of them here. The first one is what I call friction pain. So it's basically the chafing of the vagina. When the penis is moving through the vagina, it's causing friction and it's irritating the vagina. This pain you feel only around the opening to the vagina. It will feel like friction pain, like a carpet burn. You will get some sense of friction in the movement as well. So the only cause of this kind of pain is not enough lubrication. That's it. You either didn't have enough lubrication to start with, or sometimes it wears off later in sex. Sometimes people feel like, it's sort of wet and they think it's okay to start moving, but actually it's not enough to be comfortable. Now, the main reason that people feel this kind of pain is because they have a thing about using lubrication, because the solution is dead simple, just use a lubricant. But it's the thing that people make out of using the lubricant. So women will often feel self-conscious that they should be lubricating, and using lubricant is like, an admission of failure or something. And they're worried how their partner will perceive it. Men often feel that their pride is hurt, that they would used to use a lubricant, like you're not arousing her enough, which is why it's really important to make sure that a woman is properly aroused and she gets enough arousal before penetration. I will never stop going on about it, of course. And there are lots of videos on my channel you should watch about how to give really good foreplay, how to warm a woman up. But at the same time, women can fluctuate with this kind of thing. It can be a state of your physiology, a state of your energy. You might still be aroused and turned on and want to have sex with your partner, but your body is just not producing that much lubrication today. A lot of women obviously have it over the long term. Lubrication and arousal are not always matched. And if there isn't enough lubrication, you should just use a lubricant. What I would recommend is not to let it go too far, because the further it goes, then there is a point of no return. It's just irritated, and then using a lubricant might not even help it. It's really much better to anticipate it and just use enough lubricant in the beginning, or at the very least, as soon as you feel any sort of discomfort. Just don't make anything complicated about it. Just, use a lubricant. That's it. Ask your partner to put some lube on. If you're the man and you're feeling some friction, just put some lube on. That's it. Problem sorted. The second kind of pain that you can feel in sex is what I call tightness pain. So the entrance to the vagina can be quite tight, and the penis relative to the entrance is, too wide, and it is stretching the vagina uncomfortably and causing that pain. So obviously it is more common for women who haven't had sex or haven't had a lot of sex, but also some women just have relatively narrow vaginas. And also remember that it is always relative. So, your vagina might be sort of fairly normal, but the penis might be quite wide. So you will feel that kind of uncomfortable, sharp pain at the entrance. Sometimes it can even cause micro tearings. Now, lubrication is super important in this case, but lubrication on its own doesn't resolve it, because you will glide, smoother, but the tightness is still going to remain. How do you know that this is the kind of pain that we are talking about? It is at the entrance. It starts immediately at penetration, even though you have used plenty of lubricant. This is how you know that that's that kind of pain, and you have that feeling of, being stretched uncomfortably. For the man, you will have a feeling that there is like an elastic band quite tight around the penis, so there will be sort of an uncomfortable pressure on it as well, potentially, if you can feel that. The way you sort out this problem is by pacing. The tightness typically is elastic, which means that if a woman keeps having sex during the intercourse, if it is comfortable, the opening will generally kind of expand and will become more stretched comfortably. So the key here is to start carefully, so to not break it basically straight away. The thing that works the best for this kind of thing is penetration without erection, or at least without a full erection. Now, granted, you need to know a technique for it, but this is the best solution. Why? Because when the penis gets an erection inside, it stretches the opening more gradually, so there is no shock, and the vagina gets used to it and adapts to it. If you go in immediately with the erect penis, then you're immediately shocking the vagina and asking it to stretch quite a lot straight away. So that's the ideal solution. I understand it's not available to most people because you might not know the technique for penetrating without erection. You might not even be able to lose erection. A lot of men can't at will, or even half an erection. So if you're penetrating with erection, then the key thing here is to not do too much too soon and just to be careful. So the penetration has to be slower, probably progressing in steps, just to give it a moment to relax more before you move on further. You have to take it as a rule that the first few minutes of movement in the intercourse are still essentially penetration. So you're still moving carefully, not too deep, not too fast, not too long, so shorter movements. Plenty of lubrication is still important. So this essentially mobilizes the vagina, the same way as you warm up your body with movement for a more intense exercise. This sort of pain is dependent on the frequency of a sex life often. So with consistent sex life that is fairly frequent, the vagina is naturally going to become either more elastic or just more wide. So you're going to feel less of that pain. However, if you take a break, if, I don't know, you're in a long-distance relationship or something, you will find that you will need to kind of restart a little bit carefully every time because the vagina kind of contracts back to that state. Now, the third kind of pain is not to be mistaken for the second kind of pain. It is vaginismus. Having tightness in the vagina and having vaginismus are two completely different things, even though they manifest similarly. Vaginismus is a contraction of the vagina where you find it difficult to penetrate. You might not be able to penetrate at all and it's painful, or you're penetrating but it's really difficult and it is painful. So sometimes people can mistake it for just tightness in the vagina. And often when you ask for help from health professionals, they will just give you dilators to work with vaginismus as if you just need to stretch the vagina physically. So basically approaching it like basically the vagina is tight. But the thing to understand about vaginismus is that it is not a tight vagina typically. It is a contracted vagina, which means that when the vagina is relaxed, it's probably not tight. It's going to be fine. It's not going to feel any discomfort in sex, but it contracts. It contracts typically because of anxiety. Sometimes vaginismus comes on because you are anxious about sex. So maybe you're anxious that it's going to hurt. Maybe you generally have an anxiety about intimacy or being used or something. In my work, I've seen a lot of cases of women having vaginismus, obviously from traumatic events, but also from what I would call microtrauma. Microtrauma means that there isn't one single massive event that traumatizes you, but it's like repetitive strain, like a lot of negative experiences, not particularly traumatic, but not very nice. And they can compound into this anxiety about sex as well. So the anxiety about sex can cause that contraction, but often I found women can get into that loop without any particular event that caused any kind of trauma. You just, for one reason or another, struggled to penetrate on one occasion, then you worried about it the next time, so therefore it was manifested, then you worried about it even more, and it just snowballs like this really easily. So often you are contracting just because you have anxiety that you will contract, essentially. Vaginismus is tricky to get rid of because of this, because it's like it's a mental condition. You're remembering that you have it, and as soon as you remember, it's manifested, and you really struggle to forget that you have it, and you struggle to not think about it, and that is what is causing it, and that's why it's so tricky. So vaginismus is like a whole separate topic. Other kinds of pains, I can explain in 2 or 3 minutes, but vaginismus is really quite complex. Dilators help to practice on, and you will normally be given dilators first, but they're not enough because they don't really reproduce the real situation. You're still going to have performance anxiety with a real person. So I've had a lot of clients who came to me and they said, I'm fine with the dilator, with the biggest dilator, no problem, but as soon as I'm with a person, it just comes back. So the essential thing about vaginismus is you are working not on the physical tightness, you're working on your pattern of anxiety. So it's about mindfulness, it's about being in the moment, it's about learning to relax, learning to get out of your head. Essentially, it's important to find a way to not let vaginismus stop sex. So the most effective way to resolve it, I found, is to work with it when it happens. But you've got to accept that you will have the contraction, and you've got to work with it in the moment. Relaxation techniques in that moment, penetration techniques in that moment, communicating with a partner. If you find a way for vaginismus to not stop you, then it will go away. It will snowball its way out the same way as it came in. Soft penetration is really helpful here as well, because it gives you that chance to penetrate when you are still contracting as well. So one more thing that is timely to say here is that obviously the pain and discomfort that you feel in the vagina is like a summary of lots of different things that might not be working very well for you. It's not just about changing one particular movement. It's also related to arousal and how you're making love and how you're connecting with each other, what your sex is like. So obviously all of that will manifest in what you feel in your vagina, including, the manifestation of pain and discomfort. So often for women, when you're feeling pain in the vagina, you just need to make sex better, essentially. I recommend you to look into my holistic sex course, which upgrades every part of your sex to a much better experience. This course is for women, it is for men, it is for couples, it is for everybody. And this course will teach both of you as lovers to have much more fulfilling sex, but that better practice will typically avoid or resolve most of these pains and their causes. So do have a look at that course. It will help you to resolve any discomforts that you're experiencing now. The link to it is below the video. The fourth kind of pain that women feel in the intercourse is cervical pain. Crashing the penis into the back wall of the vagina, that it's causing that feeling of being bruised there. The cause of this pain is partly physical, partly typically emotional. Physically, you're basically just crashing into it, and you should not crash into it. You need to be more careful with the movement. Emotionally is because maybe too many people have crashed into it before, and now it's all kind of afraid and congested because of it. And a lot of other stuff from just sexual relationships can get deposited there. So part of it can be more like a spiritual journey of opening and accepting a man inside of you, healing yourself in that area. But partly on a pure mechanical level, you just need to mind the depth. It's actually fairly easy to avoid that discomfort by just being more mindful of how you're moving. If you're a woman, you should just communicate it. As soon as it's too deep, you should just say too deep until your partner learns what is too deep for you. It will depend on positions as well. You will typically feel it a lot more in positions from behind or with your legs really far raised. If you're a man, you can sometimes feel when you're really crashing into it, you will actually feel that wall, but I would say that's a pretty advanced stage of it. Like you should be careful way before that. Typically you won't feel it, you will just need to read it in your partner. Either she tells you or you invite her to tell you. You just ask, is it comfortable? Is it too deep? That's fine to ask. Sometimes you can perceive that a woman is uncomfortable. You feel that she is a bit kind of jerking in pain or maybe moving a little bit away from you. So you just need to learn what is comfortable depth, memorize it, and just make sure that you do it at that depth. Stimulating the cervical area is fine and can feel really nice if the woman is also working with it from her side, but you just can't crash into it. Make a soft stop and then you push into it. Now the fifth kind of vaginal pain is the most mysterious one and the trickiest one. So you can have burning pains in different places. They can be deep in the vagina. They can be around the opening to the vagina. It's the pains that you have regardless of what you are doing. So you might be using a lot of lubrication, moving really slowly. You don't feel any tightness. You don't feel any obstruction, but you still feel the burning. They are basically a form of hypersensitivity of the nerve. So if you've heard of vulvodynia, which is basically the nerves are, you can sort of imagine it like a naked wire that is supposed to be insulated, but it is naked, right? So it's feeling a lot more than it should be feeling when it's touched. So the normal movement would not cause pain, but because the wire is naked, it feels pain. So vulvodynia refers generally to the vulva, so the area around the entrance to the vagina, but women can also have the same syndrome deep in the vagina. It is basically a disorder of the nervous system in that place, in that part of your body. Pain generally, what is it? It's a signal that there is danger that the body is sending you. In this case, the body is sending a signal that there is danger where there is no danger. It got stuck in that pattern. Quite often, interestingly, it has an emotional background. So I've seen it a lot in women who have had what I call micro trauma. Maybe you're in a relationship with somebody where you don't, you're not getting on, you have conflicts, but you continue having sex, or you have sex in a way that feels kind of abusive to you from a partner, or not respectful to you, or maybe you feel like obliged or coerced into it. particularly comfortable, but you still do it. So this can create all sorts of, actually all the previous pains, most of them can be created by this syndrome. And this one as well often occurs with this kind of history, which makes sense because essentially you're having sex in a place where you don't want to be, so your body is kind of retracting from it. Your body is telling you that it doesn't want to do it, but you're still doing it. So it starts sending signals of pain, which are signals of danger, of hazard. So this kind of thing is a lot more tricky to resolve. Unfortunately, I have seen some success with just changing the lovemaking in a way that feels a lot more respectful and loving to you, where you connect with your body more positively as well, and you can make some gains with that. Sometimes it goes away just from that when it has purely emotional background. Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it's just a set chronic pain pattern. What is tricky about this pattern is that you can't really change it by changing sex. It's basically a chronic pain pattern. You have to treat it as any management of chronic pain. Chronic pain is this, which is that there is no danger, but your body keeps stuck in a loop of sending you the signals that there is danger. So don't look into sexual technique, don't look into sex therapy, look into managing chronic pain. So that's it. Hope you are better informed, and I hope you can improve your sex life to a more pain-free experience from here on for yourself or for your partner.